Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the new Imagination Works Son Goku, which is one of the most perplexing things I think any of us have ever seen in the collecting world. I'm probably being a little bit hyperbolic here, but this is basically an SH Figure Arts figure on steroids, sort of. It's a new line from Bandai, which is supposed to be like a new high-end, better product, and... well, I mean, they do a really good job with, if I can speak English, a very good job with SH Figure Arts. And this is a bigger scale, which doesn't really fit anything else. So it's like its whole new thing. And it doesn't really do many things better. And in fact, in most cases, it does things worse. It's very strange. Very, very strange. It was very strange when it was announced. Most of the people I talked to were like, why is this a thing? I don't need a bigger scale. 1/9 scale is a weird scale to put something in. What's the deal with this? And now that it's released, I am even more confused about the ideas behind this than ever. So there's a whole lot to talk about here, guys. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. Now, this guy stands just about, let's say to the top of his head, about 19 centimeters. All right, the hair spikes up a lot higher than that, but we'll say 19 centimeters. And that's going to put him at just about 7 1/4 inches, a little bit more, maybe 7 3/8. So it's a very weird scale. It's useless to do this height comparison, but you can see it's nowhere near the same scale as the SH Figure Arts line. This is closer to like an old school Play Arts figure. Play Arts Kai are a lot larger. The Play Arts ones were closer to this size. Very, very odd scale for them to build in. Not sure what's up with that. Doesn't really matter. It is in that scale, so that's fine. Now, the whole thing about this, it's supposed to be a better sculpt than SH Figure Arts. So let's go ahead and talk about the sculpt first. For the outfit, at least the orange parts, the blue parts are all still smooth like all your other standard figures. But for the orange parts, we do have a cloth texture. If you like that, that's up to you. I can't tell you whether or not to like it. They did do a good job. I personally like it. I think that's cool. If you're going to be in a larger scale, then why not add some extra details to make things more realistic? So I don't mind that at all. I think the clothing texture is good. Now, one of the other things that they were touting with this release is that the arms are made out of silicone. And I think it's silicone anyway. It's some kind of flexible material. And in the instruction booklet thingy, it says they have powdered silicone on. Anyway, they're a flexible material, so there's no seams at the bicep and elbow area. This right here, there's no seam. Big deal. That was a big selling point for this. And it is a thing. It is seamless, as you can see, and you can bend it, and it works like the Hot Toys in that it just stretches the rubber and makes it bend in a very unnatural way. So as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't really serve a purpose. As soon as you bend it, the muscles just distort completely, and you might as well just have seams because it does affect your sculpt work otherwise. Now, in a similar vein, that's the only place where the joints are hidden at all. I mean, I guess the clothing hides joints in some places, but that's normal. I mean, that happens on any kind of figure. So there's a bicep swivel up here. The neck's all cut up. The crotch and knees are just an abomination of articulation sculpting. So I don't see the point. And as far as I can tell, and of course there's no way to test this, over time, this will not last as long as actual plastic. I guess maybe it's possible, but I can't imagine a stretchy, soft material having much longevity. So I personally don't see the benefit at all there, but I guess some people are really into that kind of thing, and as long as you don't bend the arms, it does look better. I'll give them that. Now, we do have a lot more detail packed into the hair and the face. Sculpted detail, it looks very nice. I'm fine with that. And I want to mention overall, real quick, I've had some people say the opposite of this, but they're wrong. This is the best proportion setup we've seen for a Goku figure yet. Not counting statues. I don't look at statues, so I don't know about those. And it's hard to say because they're almost always posed anyway. But this is by far the best, most screen-accurate Goku proportions we've seen. The figure arts do not match this in terms of that. This is far better in that regard. For sure, 100%, unquestionable. That's basically that's all the good stuff about this guy, and I mentioned some bad stuff already too, but there's some other things that are really bad about this guy. One of the things is the head parts don't fit together for shit. I can't get this piece to peg in all the way. I mean, it'll flex, but then it pops right back out, so it doesn't stay in. I have the same issue similarly with the Super Saiyan hair. It can't even peg in. There's just a big gap there. Very low production quality on this figure. I don't know if you can see it, but the mouth not painted well. The black line comes down off of the lip. And I know that's a very tiny thing, but these are a lot more expensive than your everyday figure, so those kind of things matter. Another thing worth pointing out is we do have shading throughout the orange. It's very bright, and it definitely suits him more in the Super Saiyan mode than it does with black hair. It looks a little bit strange with black hair, but even if that wasn't an issue, we have very heavy light orange shading on the legs. Very little on the crotch, virtually none on the top part. And then there's no shading on any of the skin tone anywhere, and there's a little bit of like white shading on the tops of the shoulders, which I guess will look fine in Super Saiyan because it'll look like it's reflecting off of that. But it's, in fact, the back up here, this back part is shaded nicely back here. It's more uniform with the legs, but on the front, you just don't get much of it. So for a primo figure, these things are expensive. It's not doing it for me. It's not doing it for me aesthetically with that paint job. Last thing I want to mention on the aesthetic front is if you do anything other than put him in a neutral pose, his legs are atrocious. Good news is because of how terrible the articulation is, you can't really do much. But everybody was complaining about the figure arts when they changed up the crotch design. This is by far uglier. It looks like his front crotch is a butt. Like these look like saggy butt cheeks. And then we have this in here, and this is with it absolutely closed all the way. I'll get to the articulation and we'll talk about the aesthetic there too. He's got a giant butt crack on this, on the back. Man, I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, I know what they were thinking. They were going to make a premium figure that looked nice, but honestly, I don't think they achieved any of the goals they were going for other than like check boxes, like silicone arms, check. Cloth texturing, check. I think that's it. That's all the checks they can take. So aesthetically speaking, other than the proportions being great, and I happen to like the 3D aesthetic, the way they went about the face and that kind of thing, like the individual details are fine. I'm okay with all of that, but there are so many problems with this for being a premium figure, I don't see the benefit. I forgot to mention one last thing. There are big chunks taken out of the biceps. See that? I don't understand why that's there. There's no need for that to be there. Like, it touches in here, I guess, a little bit, but who cares? It's going to touch. The whole thing's touching. The whole shoulder's touching, so why is that like that? I don't know. Oh, also, this muscle right here, that should not stick out like that. Even on a Dragon Ball figure, that is way grossly overstated. So very strange things on this figure. Very, very strange things. All right, that's enough about the aesthetics. I'll give it, for proportions, I'll give it a 10 out of 10, but that's it. So other than proportions, we're going to go 7. There's way too many problems for the premium price. And while the textured cloth is trying to suck me in, I'm not going to fall for it. So that's it for the aesthetics. As for accessories, we do have the black hair head and a Super Saiyan hair head. For those, we have 3 different sets of eyes. For the black hair head, we have neutral and then left and right. Same thing for the yellow hair head. We have green eyes, neutral, and then left and right. We also have 2 faces for each. For the black hair, we have a neutral and yelling, and then for the yellow hair, we have an angry neutral, and then one with the teeth showing. They're all nicely done overall, but the QC sucks. There's black shit all over mine in many places, so that's very, very disappointing. Swapping out the eyes does work. You have to really jam them in there, though, so they don't bulge out of the face, but it does work. As for the hands, we have 2 fist hands that come on them in the package. Then we have 2 instant transmission hands, 2 martial arts pose hands, 2 kind of clenchy hands, and then 2 wide open hands. Those are all very nicely sculpted. Love the sculpt work on the hands. And that's obviously a good array of hands, so that's good too. And then lastly, we get a display stand, which is okay, I guess, except they cheaped out because they gave us 2 different options for the clampy part. One with a butt clamp and then one without. And they didn't give us extra tabs, like the extra arms that go on there. Just give us those so they won't have to risk breaking them every time we want to swap them out. How much would that have cost? An extra 3 cents? That's bullshit for a figure that's this expensive. So that's kind of a bummer. And then lastly, we don't have an effect part. On this Primo line, the one thing people have been complaining about in the figure arts line since the beginning, effect parts, non-existent here. Very disappointing. Accessory-wise on this guy, 7 out of 10. For the price point, that's not enough. Also, having eyeballs to change in the faceplates, I kind of like that. I think that's a cool touch because you get more versatility out of the faceplates, but I don't think that's enough. I mean, no effect part, that's definitely a bummer. And then having the problems with the hair on both different heads not fitting onto the head properly, that is also a bummer. Alright, so far, if this thing was the same price as a figure arts figure, then sure. This is all perfectly acceptable stuff, but it's not. It's like double or triple your standard Goku figure, depending on which one. So, well, I said standard. You get the idea. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the articulation, because you would think for a premium line... Hold on, actually, let's check. Let me make sure. I'm being sarcastic, but... All right, let's just run this real quick. So we have high-quality sculpture. I'll give them that. The sculpt is nice, other than the weird thing on the arms. Coloring, questionable. Definitely attempted, though, so I'll give them that halfway. Texture. Yep, they got the texture on the pants. Value. So far, that's a big old nothing. Articulation, we're about to do it. I'm going to give you a preview. They're not going to get that point. And then 1/9 scale. Well, they probably got the scale part down. All right, let's go ahead. Articulation is a fair thing. This is not meant to be a statue. All right, so let's go ahead and just check out the articulation. Basically, it's just the neck on a ball peg for the head. I mean, it moves around well enough, but you can't really move the head on top of the neck other than a swivel, and I'll show you why. Look how deep that ball peg is in that neck, and look how little room there is. The neck goes all the way up into the head. There is no room for it to move other than to swivel. You can swivel it on the neck, and it looks fine, obviously, and the neck joint is really nice, but the head doesn't move on top of the neck. And for a premium figure, I mean, the articulation's there, it just doesn't work, so that's really unacceptable. Now, the gi is mostly soft up here. This is PVC, this is maybe PVC that's a little bit softer, but this is all soft, and you have a big ball peg that connects the shoulder to the body, so you can just move that around, and that works really nicely. No problems there. You do get a little bit of a butterfly joint. I don't believe there's actually any hinge in there. I think it's just that ball peg that pulls this out. And that works fine. If you like butterfly joints or shoulders that move around, that is fine. Raising the arm up, that's as high as it goes, which is not very high. And also, they designed it terribly. Look at the type of joint they used. It's just a ball peg inside a socket that's nowhere near the right size for the shoulder. So this is a huge step back in terms of the actual shoulder articulation from figure arts. It's not better looking. In fact, they didn't even sculpt the whole arm. Look at that. They didn't even sculpt the whole shoulder. You only have shoulder muscles right there. So there's no sculpt work on there, and you don't get the range out of it because it's not executed properly. You have that big cut missing I told you out of the bicep. Of course, you do get your bicep swivel. And then we talked about this already, but we'll do it again. I believe it's still a standard double joint in there. I personally hate the way the silicone folds on any figure that uses it. It just doesn't look natural at all. It looks like sausages being folded because that's essentially what it is. So it's functional, and if you like it, fine, but it's not actually any better looking than anything else because it distorts all the muscle groups rather than just having purposeful articulation breaks. So there's that. For the wrists, we have ball hinges, which work as any standard ball hinges. No need to go over that. That's all fine. Now for the torso, this is where we really get into the impressive stuff on this figure, okay? Watch how far it can lean forward. And that's it. Alright, and then watch how far it can lean back. Like really far. But look at what happens to the gi. Even though it could have tucked in down here, it doesn't. There's just a big flat spot. And even up here where the blue is pulling away from the orange, there's a gap there. Like it's already, like his shirt's been untucked, so to speak. So he can lean back kind of far, relatively far, I guess. But it's already ugly. So you can't lean him forward at all. Like that's it. That is the amount of lean forward you get. And leaning back doesn't work. You do get to rotate side to side, but even that pulls the gi out. And it leans side to side, but almost none. Almost none at all. That's definitely a problem. Does the belt move? No. Okay, so the torso is garbage poop. Let's check out the hips. How are the hips going to work? I know everybody was real worried about it because they were very unique design here. Figure Arts did a new design. People thought it looked funny. I think it's fine. Perfectly reasonable way of doing it. This one kind of looks better in some ways. There's less line. There are fewer lines, but it definitely has more questionable sculpt. Let's see how they function. Going forward, you can bring the leg all the way up, so that's really nice, but how does it look? Holy crap, is it ugly. Like, it's absolutely terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. There's no effort to make that look good when you rotate it. You just get to bring the leg forward, and from the front it's okay, I guess, but even then, if you don't go all the way, it's still real gappy and ugly. So that's terrible going forward. How about going back? Same thing going back. It's terrible and ugly and gappy. Not good at all. Also, there's some kind of... There's a point of stickage somewhere in there that if you bring the legs out and try to put them back, you can't. You have to really force them and hope they kind of snap into place, and then you get that seam for his front butt. Alright, so let's go ahead and check out the side-to-side movement on the hips, which is actually great on most of the figure arts nowadays. Let's see how it is on this one. That's it. That is it. So it's even more ugly and far less functional. It is disgustingly bad. I have no idea how they settled on this articulation. This is a company that knows what they're doing. Is everything perfect from them? Never. I mean, that's impossible to do with a budget. But this is terrible. This is just really bad. The thigh swivel is in there. You get not a lot. Like, that's it. You could force it more, but the way they sculpted this, it's a huge gap that doesn't need to be there, and it doesn't function well. It's not well designed, really at all. All right, let's check the knees. In a neutral position, they look okay. I get what they're going for. They're trying to hide the breaks in the folded pants. That makes enough sense, I guess. Except they made the big part up here on the outside instead of having like a flap that goes under. You could have done that. You could have done something, but that's okay in the neutral pose. Let's see how it looks when it's actually bent. Top part looks okay. This isn't terrible. I mean, that's fairly well done. And then down here we have giant, it looks like a rosebud or a rose petal. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but there's no reason for it to have that. There's no reason to have this giant gap on either side. And it still only goes just better than 90, and from the side there's a huge chunk missing. It doesn't go barely better than 90, it's really bulbous, and it has these big rose petal things going on the side. It doesn't have any range, and it's ugly. How? The best thing about this is the back of the knee. When it's in a neutral pose, it's hidden. That's it. That's it. And then down for the ankles, they actually did something I've been saying they need to do more often, is use a ball hinge. But the way they did it, we have very, very little range. Almost no range, so that sucks. But you do get a really nice ankle rocker, which is really good, obviously. And we get a toe hinge, which is just your standard fair SH Figure Art style toe hinge with no shape to it or anything. It's just a big cut in the sculpt. And it's too soft to be useful. So the articulation on this guy is straight up dog shit. There's a couple things that work okay. And then the rest either isn't there or doesn't work and is ugly. So this guy gets like a 2 out of 10 for articulation. For a premium figure, this is easily the worst thing I've looked at, not counting the 3A Master Chief. That thing was like actual, I think it might have been made out of dog shit. This figure serves no purpose as far as I'm concerned. Unless you're just gonna buy it and stand it on the shelf like this. Or like in one of the poses that they like to advertise figures in where it looks all dynamic because it's coming toward the camera, but really all they did was this with it. Like, you guys know what I'm talking about. You've seen those promo images where they try to trick you making it look all dynamic and it can't do any of that stuff. That's what this figure is. This figure is a promo image. It's cool on paper, cool in concept, maybe even cool in the marketing. But in real life, it's not even close to worth buying. In fact, I don't want to own this, even if it was like half price. The only thing I actually, okay, 2 things I like about it, and that's just me personally, and the one is objective. The proportions are fantastic, like I mentioned. It looks great in proportion terms. I personally like the way they went about the 3D sculpting as well. Turning it from 2D to 3D looks very nice, and they were able to get more detail into it because it's bigger. Those are both pluses. Nothing else is worthwhile on this figure. Yeah, sure, the Saiyan hair looks nice because it's shiny. So, you can make it look nice on little, there's no benefit to this figure. I can't figure out what we're paying for. It's way overpriced, and it fails in every regard. So, final verdict on the figure, 5 out of 10 overall. There you go, guys. Before we leave, we'll do a quick question of the day. Easy one. Which version of Goku is your favorite? Mine is Super Saiyan 3. Alright, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.